Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Mining Conversation with MsTedy. The podcast is exactly about that. We are looking into the mining industry of South Africa. And today I am joined by a fantastic guest by the name of Raksha Naidoo. She's a BSc graduate, CEO for the Particle Group and WiMSA Chairperson. And we are going to be talking about women in mining. Before we start the conversation, I would first like to thank MENA for being our sponsor. And also, can I just remind you that you subscribe, like, share, so that you do not miss any of our episodes. So I would like to welcome you to this episode of where we are just talking about women in mining. Thank you very much for joining me today. Wonderful. So before we just go further, can we talk about the WiMSA group? You're a chairperson. Kindly take us through what WiMSA is.
Sure. Mining South Africa, or WiMSA, was created about 14 years ago. Okay. We're a non-profit organization, and it was created primarily to build a community for women in mining. As you know, the mining industry is predominantly a male-dominated industry, and I think that there were a lot of women within the space who were almost looking for a place to find like-minded individuals like them, and people who were going through or experiencing similar challenges as they were. And that was the birth of WiMSA. Okay. Initially, it probably began as some sort of a networking event that took place every now and then, and over the last couple of years, it has grown significantly, and we've begun to focus on a lot more targeted, hard-hitting issues or matters that affect women in the industry on a day-to-day basis.
And then what would you say are your top priorities as an organization when it comes to women issues?
So our main focus is trying to create a better world for women in mining and through mining. And we do that through a variety of different platforms. We have a very strong focus on mentorship and career development. We focus on a variety of different awareness campaigns in terms of bringing light to issues such as gender-based violence. We do a lot of work in trying to encourage more women to join the industry, a lot of STEM-focused work, as well as creating networking platforms where women can meet each other and engage. And the power of actually sharing what we all experience on a day-to-day basis, we've seen has a positive impact in trying to help women leverage their opportunities that exist in the industry and ultimately break down biases, discrimination, and allow for a future-focused industry as we progress.
Okay, so when you first joined the mining industry, and then when you look back at what was happening and look back what is currently happening, what are the issues that were faced back then, and what are the issues that are still being faced like currently?
Sure.
Yeah.
I joined the industry by accident. I was looking for a job, literally. I found a job and I took it, and I actually didn't know enough. I was very ignorant and naive about what the industry was about and where this job was going to take me. I stayed in the industry though because I found it extremely interesting, rewarding, and it presented a lot of opportunities for career growth, career development. Okay. However, the challenges that existed then, and probably to an extent still exist now, is that it remains a very male-dominated industry. There's a lot of discrimination that exists for women from a gender perspective, racial perspective, age perspective. And I think one of the biggest issues when I started off was there was not a lot of awareness and not a lot of female leaders that existed. So when you looked at the industry, it looked a certain way. And the progression over the last couple of years has allowed for more leadership to exist from a female perspective, more women who look like you and I, so it became a lot more relatable. And it almost became very much inspiring and motivating, one, to stay, but two, to continue to grow and help in the industry.
And then through the work that you do in the organization, of course, you hold talks, I can imagine, yes, and you go to different areas in the country, just talking about mining industry and women. Do you find that a young woman of South Africa interested in mining, or this is just one of those, no, it's fine, I'll look at another industry, but mining is a no-no? Or has that changed the interest of women coming into mining? Do you think it has changed? Is it becoming bigger, greater, or is what's happening?
100% definitely changed. I think there's a lot more opportunities that are available. I think there are a lot more of the mining houses that are affording bursaries to more individuals, and young girls included. And I think that there's almost an excitement to be a part of the industry because a lot more younger women are stronger and braver to stand up against challenges that exist, which is very exciting to see. The challenge that exists, though, or one of the biggest issues I think that we see, is that retaining women in the industry becomes a problem. So whilst we're bringing more and more women in, and there's a lot more work done and a lot more advocacy to almost get youngsters and kids at school excited about science and show them that science is cool and the industry is really cool. So it's about how do we now bring them in, excite them, give them the opportunities, and then retain them ultimately to start building that. And we see that the retention of women is one of the biggest challenges that exist.
So what would you say that is the biggest challenge?
So, couple reasons.
Okay.
One of the big reasons, as I see them, and from the standpoint that we have as WiMSA, with the people that come into our space to talk about what goes on, there are certain mining environments that are just not safe. Gender-based violence is a huge issue. The amount of terrifying stories that we hear about what goes on within mine sites, underground, whatever it might be, it's actually really, really scary. And I think one of the challenges that exists for leadership in this industry is that we need to create safe working spaces for women to be able to succeed and to thrive. You need to know that when you come to work, you're in a safe environment, that you are protected, and that you don't have to worry about what may or may not happen to you as you go to do your day job. There are smaller things as well, things such as certain industries or certain companies maybe don't have the right type of PPE available for women to use, because a woman's body is very different from a man's body. There's also not dedicated change house facilities for women, which then puts them at more risk as well because they become more exposed. And then this is, of course, the big risk of there aren't enough opportunities for women to grow and to succeed. And I think that leadership needs to create more opportunities that allow for women to be developed through the ranks, get to mid-management level, put them through development programs, and ultimately take them to become the future leaders of the industry. And I think that up until we don't change some of those norms, it becomes difficult for women to stay, and women get frustrated. And women who've experienced the harassments, the abuse, whatever it might be that has taken place, if you don't have a safe outlet and someone who's actually looking out for you and has your back, you start getting frustrated, and that's when people end up leaving. And with a lot of the technological advancements that are taking place on a daily basis, it almost also gives more opportunity for the operators of either automated equipment or machinery to be any gender. It's not strength-based or skill-based. And why can't we just upskill each other and give each other the opportunities? So there's a lot of different things I think that are women face, and I think that there's lots of opportunity for us to do that right, such that we can keep the skills, one, in the industry, and two, in our country as well.
And then when it comes to mining companies, what is it that do you think they can do to also help with the issues that are faced by women in mining?
How long is the list? There's a lot that companies need to do, right? And I genuinely believe the biggest change has got to come from the board levels down. Okay. I think that leadership have got the biggest role to play. Government has a huge role to play in this as well. I think we need to create, outside of safer working environments, we need to create more inclusive working cultures. We need to create spaces that fosters the differences that exist between men and women. Spaces that, allows for a woman to be who she is and to not have to become something else in order to succeed in this space. We need to be focused on how do we actually uplift and develop each other for the right reasons, and not just because we have a quota to fit and there need to be X number of women on our boards, in our organizations, in management, whatever it is. The mining industry has a massive, massive role to play, and leadership has to drive that change. And I think there's a lot of work that is being done. We're seeing the progress on a year-on-year basis, and it's incredible to see the changes that are here. But we need to get to a point where we're no longer talking about the challenges that face women in mining, but the challenges that face professionals in mining. Oh, sure. And I think that's a big part of the journey. It's a big part of why we all are here. We all are giving our time in to try and bring about the change. And it will get there, but it needs a very big collaborative effect from industry, government, everybody.
And then when it comes to, let's go back to WiMSA and Kate. Yeah. So how does then your organization define women empowerment in the mining industry?
How do we define it? Well, for us, women empowerment would be creating a world where the discrimination doesn't exist, where gender parity exists, where it's not a case of, you have all of these different cases of harassment, bullying, abuse, those things taking place, because those things are more and more prevalent these days as well. Women empowerment is being able to give women the skills, the confidence, the ability to use their voices to stand up against the challenges that they face. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we've all been focused on. There's a lot of stuff that we need to do on a day-to-day basis from a technical perspective, to be technically competent in order to go and execute our roles. But the amount of self-doubt that women have, the amount of confidence issues that women have, the fear that exists, I think, in a lot of people to be able to stand up and speak up against the challenges is probably one of the biggest things. And I think the biggest empowerment I think that we can see is that the day that we all stand up for ourselves, have the confidence to put our best foot forward, our strongest selves forward, and to fight against the biases, the discrimination, the challenge, we become so much stronger. And if we do it collaboratively, we can overcome so many of these problems that exist.
Okay, so there's a target that was sent by the Mineral Council where they said they wanted to double the number of women working in mining by 2025. So in your own thoughts, what would it take for that to be achieved?
It seems like a huge task at this point, but I think it's not impossible. 2025 is just a couple months away, so a little bit harder, I think. But again, I think in order to achieve the targets that are set out, it just requires this massive collaborative effort. It requires us to actually do. We need to stop talking about things that need to happen and actually start taking action against them. I think that leadership has the biggest role to play in all of this, because if the leadership in mining houses consciously brings about the change and intentionally starts to develop and promote women and bring them up to the levels that they need to, these tasks become that much easier. And also, we're not fighting against each other. I mean, we're trying to work together in order to achieve this. We can't get gender parity without having men along the journey with us. So it's a collaborative effort of having women and men working together to achieve that. And I think, it's mindset changes, it's, cultural changes, it's so many different little things that need to come together, but it requires a very, very collaborative effort from everyone and an intentional effort in order to do that.
And do we actually have mines that are owned? Like, are there mine owners that are women here in South Africa?
They are. They're few and far between, but they do exist. I think, it's one thing also even just getting the licenses in place in order to get your mining rights. The other problem, I think, and a lot of the challenges is from investment, because once you've got the rights and you're able to own a mine, owning it is just the first step, right? Now you need the investment to come in order to start building it and to bring the skills on board and to do all of that. So they do exist, but they are few and far between. And again, we need more of a concerted effort in terms of, giving those opportunities, affording those licenses to women-owned entities. The role of women in mining spreads across not just professionals in the industry, but also entrepreneurs. And having female entrepreneurs thrive in the industry and create, successful businesses is also a huge focus of what needs to happen. And I think there's so much of work that has to be done with that. And I guess, the DMRE plays a huge role in that, different government organizations, various stakeholders, investment houses. So they are there, but there's so much more that needs to happen for you and I to actually know a list of names of them.
Yeah. And then just looking into the future, how do you see the mining industry shaping or changing when it comes to women playing in bigger roles or getting bigger roles in the industry, and then not just becoming in the entry level, but going higher and higher in the industry? So how do you then foresee that in South Africa with the future of mining?
The future is always female, isn't it? Right? Now more than ever, there are quite a few female leaders that exist in the mining industry. There are some incredible examples that exist. CEOs of different companies, a lot more senior women that are standing up, standing out, inspiring, encouraging, motivating. So the time to be in this industry is exciting right now. And I think, WiMSA is a volunteer organization, right? So I volunteer my time into this organization, as do my colleagues. And the thing that we all are trying to do is we all are trying to come together to be the change that the industry needs, because we also have to lead by example with it. And I think as leadership within the industry, female leadership particularly, if we don't take the positive steps forward and we don't start putting ourselves out there, having the conversations, having the hard conversations, it becomes that much harder to bring the change. But if we start doing that and we start truly intentionally being real about what's going on out there, it becomes easier to show the transition of what needs to take place. So it's a lot of steps that we need to take together with men along the way, with industry playing its part, with government doing its thing, with various communities coming on board to be accepting and allowing certain things to take place. We can get to a stage where, women are now not just sitting in tick box roles, but they are climbing that ladder. They're sitting at C-suite levels. They are CEOs of mining houses. They are chairmen of boards. It's not impossible. I think that we just have to continue working at it, continue pushing through, and we'll get there. There's no reason why we can't. A lot of effort also needs to go into getting the youngsters excited about it, because it's one thing at this generation that I'm at to continue climbing and doing what they need to do, but we need the layers below us to also be excited about it. So there's a huge effort that we at WiMSA undertake in terms of going out to schools to get the youngsters excited about science and the mining industry. And we need to almost go way back into primary school level and get them excited there. So it's almost like, I don't know, I'm probably going off on a tangent with it, but there's a mindset that's got to change with little girls and little boys from the time that they're toddlers, right? Because why must I play with a doll, but he gets to play with a truck? Why can't I play with a truck and be excited about the truck? And what can I build with that? And what can I do with that? So I think there's we all have a role to play in this. Society has a role to play in it. Parents need to change mindsets of kids. And we need to develop our male generations, or the younger male generations, to be that empowered, that they don't see the discrimination and they don't instill and perpetuate the historic norms that have existed. But without a doubt, the future will definitely be female, but we've got to keep pushing through and fighting for it.
And then when you talk about getting young people to be interested, now there's a person who's listening to this interview, and then they're thinking, okay, I want to get into mining, but I don't know what to do. Do I just now go to university and just study mining engineer, or is there any other way that a person can get into mining? And what other studies can they take up 100%. And then to just end up in this industry?
So about 2 years ago, we created at WiMSA a career booklet. And we created this booklet showcasing the different faces of women in mining, because you don't need to just be a mining engineer. You could be a geologist, a chemist, a drill rig operator, a nurse, and the list is endless. So we created this with the intention of saying that you don't need to be stereotyped in just one role, that there are so many different successful careers you can build based on what your skill set is. You also don't need to be just a tertiary graduate in order to be in the mining industry and succeed. There are artisanal roles that are required. There's a lot of other skills that can be gained through, informal training. There's a variety of different things. And ultimately, there's the female entrepreneur as well. So if somebody is interested, they're more than welcome to reach out to us on our website. There's a lot of information with regards to, how we can assist. Our booklet is accessible on our website for free download. And you can have a look at what these different types of careers are. And coupled with the career, we've also got information of what do you study, where do you study it, what subjects do you need to take at school, as well as real examples of people that are currently in those roles, giving you insight into what their lives are like. So there's a lot of stuff that is out there. Just reach out to us. We can connect dots. We can help you find people in your area, in your community, that are always willing to assist and to help.
All right, so I don't want to close off the conversation, but we're getting to that time where I just need to close it off. But with your own words, how would you like to see the mining industry, especially in South Africa, change? Like going into the future, what would you like to see happening?
I believe it needs to be an inclusive industry. I think it needs to be a safe one, free of discrimination, harassment. I think it needs to be one where we are compensated on our skills fairly. We need to exist as professionals. We need to exist as, how do we come together to build a better industry that succeeds for our country? And I think, when we all start changing those types of mindsets, it leads to something better. But definitely inclusivity, safety, super, super important in terms of how do we bridge those gaps and change the mindsets as we move forward. And also an environment or an industry that's culturally inclusive, there's so many different, South Africa is just such a mix of variety of different cultures, people, understandings, all of those things. And it is understanding and embracing this. When I say inclusivity, it's inclusivity of everything, because there's so many different aspects. And that's how I'd like to see it change and how I'd like to see it evolve. And for us to be in a space where conversations about women in mining no longer exists, but in fact we're dealing with some of the harder hitting challenges or problems that might exist for all professionals and all individuals.
Professionals in mining.
Professionals.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me and then sharing your thoughts and telling us about women in mining. And I hope that whoever's listening and interested in joining in mining will listen to everything that Raksha said and take it to heart. With that being said, I'll also like to thank my team, which is Malangabi Kamu, Treni Sitache, as well as Musabaloi. Thank you so much, and please do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and follow. And also let me not forget to thank our sponsor, MENA. Thank you and goodbye.